Okay, so to finish up the class, we're going to learn about workers' compensation. And workers' compensation is got essentially, which is section 4 in Moodle, it has essentially 3 parties to it, right? It's got the employer who's paying the premiums, and it's kind of funny because we have a tendency to think of it as a payroll tax. It's actually not, it's an insurance premium. But it's mandatory, you gotta pay it to somebody else, and so it looks a lot like a payroll tax, but it actually doesn't show up as payroll tax expense. In your P&L, it shows up under insurance expense. So there's 3 parties. There's the employer, there's state fund who administers the program itself, and then there's the injured worker. And you can see in state fund that there's lots of different kinds of divisions. The first one, safety and loss control, a lot of people don't know about. They're actually the group that goes in and works with employers to preclude things from happening. So, oh my gosh, you've got a small-scale farm or a chemical factory or a printing press or whatever. Let's go in and help make your workplace as tight and safe as we can. Claims administration, that's pretty obvious. They're the ones that process the claims. Fraud detection, that's actually a group a lot of people don't know exists either. They're the ones that are hiding in the bushes to make sure you're not going skiing when they're paying for soft tissue repair or something. No, it's a little more sophisticated than that, but not always. Actually, there are guys with video recorders. But it's just basically to preclude fraud because that adds to everybody's premiums. Early reporting is a group that encourages and works with employers to get an early reporting system in place. So let me give you an example, an obvious example. Like I work at FedEx or I work at UPS, and obviously you've got to be pretty fit to be lifting. What do they lift up to 70, 60, 100? Oh, come on. Most women aren't able to. Right, and so it's a lot of lifting and twisting, which is a really dangerous thing on the lower back, right? So I do that all day, every day for a living. I've got to differentiate between just the normal wear and tear that my body feels doing that and actually like a tweak. And if I feel that tweak, that might mean that I've potentially hurt a disc, right? You don't want to wait till your disc explodes or herniates. You want to make sure that you've got that early reporting logged in, because if you wait until you herniate the disc, and that also happens on the weekend that you're skiing the bumps, right? You might have a problem there. So early reporting just tries to educate people, and I hope you guys can all hear this if you're ever in a situation like that. Because anything that is based upon work, you want to get in there and file an early report. And then managed care network is, of course, your doctors, your PTs, your occupational therapists, everybody that you work with medically to get you back to work. Injured worker, they've got the right to 3 different kinds of, actually 4, but 3 basic kinds. Disability benefits, so that's a portion of my prior paycheck while I'm off getting rehab. Death benefits and dismemberment benefits are also rolled into that. So if you're killed on the job, there's a piece of state fund that pays for that. If you're dismembered, like your thumb's worth more than, say, your pinky finger, right? So each, if you lose your arm above or below the elbow, it's a different number. So that's what's kind of broken, but it's all wrapped into disability benefits.
I like selling you price out of your body.
Seriously. Although I'm just reading a book that's set in Bombay, and one of the ways that really poor people make money is to sell their organs.
Big time in the third world.
Oh, yeah, sure, have a kidney. It's like pays for my housing for a year. Pretty crazy. Yeah, kind of crazy. I've never been hungry though, so I don't know what I would do. Medical benefits, of course, paying for your medical, and then voc rehab, you're never going to go back to being a UPS worker. You have a fusion in your spine. Let's figure out what you're going to do instead. Okay, so I'm sure most of you basically know most of this.
So the voc rehab, if you let's say you injured your spine, like back on the job, if they like put you in a new position of like a front desk.
Absolutely, and that would be the best of all worlds. Least desirable to them is you can never work for UPS again, and now we've got to completely retrain you to do something else. Yeah, it's always desirable to return to your prior employer in a job. And I mean, I don't know this, but I have to imagine that UPS and FedEx have a whole procedural system set up to accommodate that, because they've got to have pretty high injury rates. Okay, so the key thing here is it's mandatory no fault insurance. Mandatory, obviously everybody knows what that means. No fault insurance means that shy of gross negligence, I can't sue my employer. In other words, this is my only recourse. So I can't go and sue UPS and say, you know, you didn't provide me with a core fitness training program to get my body up to snuff to do this kind of work. This is my only source of remediation. So what benefits do I get? We've just gone through that. I get wage loss, I get medical, I get death, dismemberment, and rehabilitation benefits. What does the employer get for all this? Exclusive remedy. In other words, if I'm UPS and I pay my premiums, you can't come back and sue me unless I can prove gross negligence. You know, a restaurant would probably be the easiest example, probably pretty high injury rates, worker comp claims. So there's no process in place. You know, they refuse to buy the little thing that says wet floor after you mop or something. I mean, if you can prove repeated gross negligence, then exclusive remedy doesn't hold. Okay, so obviously the employer pays for it. You can never ask your employees to chip in. And you can't say, well, we don't really do workers' comp, but I've got this great liability policy, right? It has to be workers' comp. I'm going to kind of jump down before I go to the three types. Benefits are statutory, therefore identical. What does that mean? What's statutory?
It's a time frame, isn't it?
Statutory is a statute, and a statute is a fancy word for a law. So statutory, whenever you see that, that means it's embedded in law. Costs can vary, and it depends upon which of the three kinds of coverage you get. Plan one, you self-insure. That's very specific and only for well-established employers. We'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment. The University of Montana self-insures. Okay, we don't pay premiums to anyone else. We self-insure. We put money into a pot every month that's determined by an actuary. Remember what that is? Yep, they tell us how much a month to put in, and it's the amount that they calculate based upon our prior history that we need to pay out all of our benefits on a monthly basis in perpetuity. Private insurance carrier, that's where I just go to, you know, Prudential or Payne West or whoever and say, hey, will you quote me premiums just like you do a car policy or a homeowner's policy? And lastly, state fund. So, which is the organization in Helena that is called, now I'm back down at the bottom, a residual market. In other words, I can't self-insure, too small, too new, whatever. I can't get anybody to cover me privately because I'm high risk. Like I just had a client that was a log liner, and I mean, they had really a pretty horrific accident history, and they couldn't get anybody to quote them private coverage. So they had to go to workers to State Fund. State Fund quoted them a premium that was 40 cents on the dollar. So for every dollar I pay in wages, I paid 40 cents into workers' comp. Okay? Residual market, they've got to cover them, but I mean, and they can't deny him unless he doesn't pay his premiums, default the premiums. Okay, so he was not happy about that. Self-insurance, again, you've got to have at least 50 employees, be 3 years in business, you have to post a deposit, and you've got to provide evidence of financial solvency. In other words, the university can't say, we're putting away a couple $1,000 a month. It's like, I have no idea, but I would bet with 3,000 employees, we probably, and I mean, you know, we have lots of facilities people, I mean, higher risk, you know, I bet you we put away $250,000 a month. Just making that number up. But you've got to have enough actuarially that if something really significant happens, that you can pay for it. I'll never forget, this was probably my third year teaching. It was so horrific. It was this time of year, obviously, because it was the workers' comp section. And one of my students, her dad was one of the boiler repairmen. And you know where I'm going with this. And it was a horrific accident, and he was air flighted to Seattle with burns over 80% of his body. He was in Seattle burn unit for a year and a half. Obviously never worked again, obviously. So that kind of thing, I'm just making this number up, what was probably a $3 or $4 million claim. Okay, knock on wood, those don't come along very often, but you need to actuarially be prepared for something like that.
So the university that has to pay for it.
Forever. I mean, they're liable to this gentleman from Frenchtown forever. Yeah. That's what self-insurance is, and that's why it's only very few entities can prove that they're solvent enough to do that.
Does that work comp cover like acts of God or accidents type thing?
It's got to be directly related to the workplace. That's a great question. So I'm at work.
Like an earthquake?
I was just in San Francisco, and that's all anybody talks about there is tremors. So I'm at work and an earthquake occurs and this building crumbles into the ground. That is not a work-based injury. That's not going to go through workers' comp. But if I'm driving somewhere on behalf of work and I get in a car accident, my first recourse is workers' comp, not my auto insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Private carriers, again, these are profit-oriented organizations. They need to provide a yield to their shareholders, so you may or may not get better rates with them. And then state fund, and that's all they do is sell workers' comp insurance, and they can't deny anybody. Uninsured employers fund, I actually have a story about this. These are the guys that go around and make sure that, and gals, that make sure that everybody's insured through workers' comp. When I started my first job out of grad school, we were living in Fort Collins, Colorado. I was working for a startup biopharmaceutical company. Young woman, I really, honestly, it was kind of my first big gig. I literally just didn't, it wasn't on my top 30 things to do to apply for workers' comp, and I think we'd only barely had our lab open 7 or 8 days. And I mean, they were like knocking on the door. You know your workers' comp application? This is back before computing was widespread, and I'm like, no, I haven't. They literally will go to the paper and look at new business license applications, drive around and look for new storefronts, and then double check it against their database. And I haven't applied. And I'll tell you, they give you 48 hours and they kind of yellow tape your commercial enterprise and throw a lockbox on, and that's all she wrote until you get current. Yeah, it's cease and desist. Yeah, it's not a like, well, I'm getting around to it, or I'm trying to raise the capital to pay for it. It's like, yeah, no, if you open your doors and have employees, and we're going to see that you have to put a deposit down, and then they calculate the premiums in arrears and take it out of the deposit. So it's not a pay-as-you-go thing like taxes. Okay, so this is just a copy of a booklet off of Montana State Fund. I'm not going to go into all of every single second of this, every single section of this, but this is one of those things, as I said in the other sections, that you need to go through and identify what you think is important. So I'll sit up here and read to you, but it walks through like your basic FAQs. What happens when I get hurt? Well, every organization has got a point of entry first reporting person, and that's who you go to. You've got to do it within 30 days after the accident. False information, responsibilities. And this is pretty important. Workers' comp does not allow you complete freedom of choice to find your own medical provider. They have got a network of providers. So you're like, oh, I love my doctor at Western Montana Clinic. Well, she may be part of the workers' comp network, and she may not. So you just have to be aware that you don't have the freedom to choose.
Can I what do they call it? They have to, if you walk into the ER, say I got an injury that happened at work.
Uh-huh.
Are they required to tell the state?
Oh, absolutely. Every single medical input form you ever fill out will have a box that says, is this a work-related accident? Yes or no? And if yes, yeah, that is all tied into state fund. Now, state fund might not carry your policy, right? Because they might be self-insured or but that is one piece of the big puzzle that establishes the basis. And that's another point. So in a perfect injured world, something happens and you have a chance to go and file your first report on site. So if I don't know, what do I do? How would I get hurt on the job? Fall down the steps because the steps were wet and they hadn't put out the little sign, okay? Hopefully I'm not heading straight to the ER. Hopefully I'm going to Susan on the second floor, who's our chief administrative assistant, saying, hey, Susan, can I have a first reporting form filed? I'll let you know. Okay, so that would be how I would potentially get in the system. The other way would be like, oh my God, I fell down the steps and, they're carrying me out of here in a stretcher with potential spinal injury and going straight to the hospital. That's, my husband would come, and then the box would be checked. Yeah, this is a workplace injury.
There are limitations for time.
30 days in the exam one. Crawling around for 30 days, but yeah.
So, could you find the reporting form on, or does they?
It has to go through your employer. In other words, if you work for me, you can't circumvent me and go, I've got a workplace injury. Now, this gets really tricky, you guys, because how do you think employers react to work comp claims?
They love them.
Yeah, they love them. They can hardly wait for their rates to skyrocket, right? So, what can happen or has happened, and I mean, it's completely illegal, but it's like, oh, hey, Gabby, so say you work on a construction site and you're like, forklift operator, backed into me or ran over when I think I broke a couple toes on my right foot. Oh man, that sucks. I'm superintendent, I pull out my wallet and I hand you $700 bills. That's not a good example. I hand you $3,000 worth of bills. And say, go take care of your foot, take the next week off, and, here's Christmas for your kids. Okay? Don't file a workers' comp suit. Totally illegal. I can't say it happens all the time, but I've certainly heard of it. Okay? What Gabby should do is take the $3,000 and then go file the workers' comp suit. She shouldn't do that because then she gets her kneecaps taken out. Okay. You definitely, but that's just an illegal scenario. You have to go through the employer.
Well, I was curious on that because I went to the ER once after one of the big Hobart machines, dough mixers.
Yeah.
I fell on my foot. And it was like, I'm young and tough.
Uh-huh.
So I waited 3 days before I finally went to the ER and had it looked at. And then they filed the whole workers'
Comp claim, yeah.
And I didn't go through my employer at all. I wasn't even expecting to go that route.
But that's what I'm saying, you went through the ER.
Right.
So, yeah, that's okay, that's interesting, because time had passed and you had had the capacity to report it through your employer. I guess I don't know about that.
I didn't know that's what was going to happen, so I came to work and was like, why did you file a workers' comp problem? I'm like, they didn't realize I had it.
Right, yeah, if you go in the ER, even like, I just had some dental stuff and it, was it work related? Everything medical, optical, dental, that's the first question. Okay, prescription pharmacies, obviously also like your doctor, it's a network. Travel expenses, there's some rules around that. If your physician does not release you to return to work because of your injury or occupational disease, you may be eligible for wage loss benefits. They want to know, first off, can you do temporary light duty assignment, right? Obviously, they want you, if you're, say that you're the guy that herniated his disc at UPS, if you can work in the customer service on the phones. Obviously, they want you to do that before they pay you benefits. We strongly recommend you speak with your claims examiner about this important benefit. You can't start getting workers' comp until you've been off work for 32 hours or 4 days of lost wages. Okay? But, so in other words, like if something happens and I'm off work for a couple, 2 or 3 days from a work-based injury, I don't get workers' comp. But then if I'm off, that second paragraph says for 21 or more days, then they'll retro my wages back to day one because I really do have a bona fide workplace injury. Okay, here's defining the different kinds of wage loss. And then these numbers, obviously you can see these are a little bit dated. I don't have the 2019, but you get, right here, this is the key percentage, 66 2/3% of your wages at the time of injury. But it's non-taxable. So if I was making $1,000 a week gross, now I'm getting a check for $666.67. But it's non-taxable. So you guys know what that means. So I might actually be making more if I was in a high what bracket? Which kind of bracket? Which brackets are different, depending upon how much you make? Right, so that's FIT and SIT, right? You know that. Everybody pays the same FICA, right? So if I'm in a high fit and sit bracket, like I'm married to a neurosurgeon or something, or I'm just high income, well, I wouldn't be high income at $1,000 a week. So say I'm married to somebody that's in the 37% bracket, I actually may be making more money off of workers' comp. Not that that's desirable, obviously, to be injured, but, okay.
Well, some people try to do that too.
Oh, I mean, it's just crazy. If you spent all that creativity that you did trying to cheat the system just working hard, you would be so much better off.
You mentioned construction, and it's a big deal when it's comp, because jobs only last so long.
Sure,
They won't tell you when the job ends.
right.
Because when people know when the job ends.
Then everybody's getting hurt.
workers' comp goes through the roof,
No kidding.
and it's like the last week of the job,
So crazy.
50% of the people, oh,
I hurt myself, yeah.
So-
You know, and it's a tough job for the intake people. Like, I've had some really sad stories over the years of students that have had workplace injuries, and this moves at an absolute snail's pace, right? So, I don't get my benefits maybe for 6 months. Well, for most of us, like, you got 6 months worth of living sitting in your bank account. I sure don't. What do I do to make my house payments? And I mean, I've seen some really sad stories. The flip side of it is so everybody wants to, mash on workers' comp and how, incompetent they are. But can you imagine, just based on what David was talking about, what it would be like to be an intake person for workers' comp? And, there's obviously plenty of bona fide injuries and illnesses, but, X% are just like, I don't want to work and I want to check. So, you've got to constantly, especially with soft tissue stuff, that you can't really, you can't like x-ray it,
So
so.
much they didn't want to work if they knew the job was ending. so
Okay,
they wanted-
fair enough. Right, but
It's
workers'
not cheating.
comp isn't a stopgap on what they should be applying
Still
for
wrong.
SUDA.
It's still-
Why couldn't they apply for SUDA maybe? Why didn't they go that route? You know the answer to this.
It pays more.
Maybe it does, but that's not really the answer. Why wouldn't they, if in the example where like I've been on this job for 5 or 6 months, I'm heading into winter, I can't do outdoor work, I know I'm going to get pulled off, so now my toe. Why don't I just apply for SUDA? No, I'm talking about me personally as the employee. Why don't I just go apply for SUDA? Isn't that my recourse? To get unemployment, you have to have worked what? 4 out of 5 quarters in your base period. Right? 4 out of 5 quarters. If I apply in December, right now, This quarter doesn't count. Last quarter doesn't count, and then I have to go back 4 more. I don't really have an unemployment, well, I don't have an unemployment claim, right?
And I was gonna say the claim employees, that, since they do get a lot of, bad claims, people just make that. Couldn't that also make people be biased in the workplace? Because my mom had to deal with somebody, and she actually had to turn her in for the way.
Fraud.
She was, no, treating my mother for applying for kind of thing, because she did get her that job.
So your mom was injured, your mom was applying for workers' comp, and one of her, like her supervisor, I would assume, or?
Actually, the lady that was running for workers' comp, that she has to go, you have to call them.
Oh, it wasn't somebody at her company, it was actually somebody at State Fund?
Yeah, and she had to turn that at the end because.
That's just an unhappy state employee. That's horrible. And just as a note, this is just a life lesson. If any time you're dealing with insurance claims or workers' comp claims or unemployment claims, or really anything like that, dental claims, get a notebook out, document every single phone call you have. Who am I speaking with? Do you have a badge number or an employee ID number? Date your notes. Do you mind if I make a follow-up email to the conversation we had so that you've got something documented? Because believe me, when you get down the road, Matt, it's like he said, she said, nobody remembers what happened. So just really, you've got to self-advocate with stuff like that. If your mom did that, good on her if she wasn't being treated with respect and being allowed to use the avenues that were there for her. Okay, so anyways, please go and look at this. Here's all the addresses and phone numbers. Okay, so I'm sure if you've ever had a job, you've seen this posted. This is required to be posted. It tells everybody that they're covered by workers' comp. Okay, how do you report an injury? We've talked about that. You go to your first reporting form. At your point of entry at your business, a claim number is assigned, and then they say, of course, this is state funds information. They will promptly manage the claim. Okay, so let's start talking about what you do as the employer. So I'm getting ready to open a dog walking business, and I'm just using that because just being in San Francisco, that is a thriving business. There's just the tiniest thing. You see somebody walking 15 dogs from a Great Dane to a Chihuahua. It's really kind of a skill. And I'm going to hire 3 dog walkers and a salesperson. And I have done my business plan, so I've estimated what revenue I think I'm going to generate and how much I think I'm going to pay the dog walkers and blah, blah, blah. So now I need to apply. Well, why don't you walk me through it? What are some other things that I need to do? You should be able to just rattle these off. So based on that, what do I need to do around my employment stuff?
And you're just starting.
I'm getting ready to open on Jan 1. I need to file an SS4 to get my EIN. I need to get my state employer ID number, which I need for which tax? Set. I need to register with Unemployment Insurance Division to be able to do what? SUTA. I've got to get my new hire reporting forms ready for my employees. I've got to find some I-9s and W-4s to give my employees. See, these are great test questions, like how do you get set up? And then I've got to do this, I've got to apply for workers' comp. That's one of the things you're going to be doing for this assignment. You're going to be applying for workers' comp, and then you're going to be doing the follow-up report a year later to reconcile your deposit with what your real premiums should have been. Okay, so you mail an application, and this is all digital now, but So you email an application, and then they look at all your data and they send you a bill. You send the bill, and then you get something called a binder, okay, which means they guarantee the guaranteed coverage is bound. So they issue you a binder. Okay, so here's the application. And like many applications you've already done, you know, just filling out the basic information. Very important over here to identify what type of organization you are. Proposed effective date. You know, if I'm not opening till 1/1/20, I'd put 1/1/20. If, like, it was me when they came knocking at my door and the company was already open, I wrote immediately, you know, like last week. There is no proposed expiration date, and just leave these guys blank. Then this is really important, rating information. You don't do these first 4 columns at all, but what you do is out here. Description of employee duties. Based on the scenario I just gave you, I'd say dog walkers, sales manager, and owner. Do I have to cover myself?
If you file, unless you file
Of what?
waiver or something, waiver of,
IC exemption. Right, remember, an IC exemption exempts me from what? Paying workers' comp and paying SUDA. Right? So I might choose to cover myself. I mean, honestly, I think if I'm working with animals, I probably would want to cover myself. I would imagine that's a fairly high-risk business on the whole. But if I have no intention of ever getting near a dog, then maybe I would choose not to cover myself, right? So you put description of employee duties, how many full-time and how many part-time, and you estimate their annual payroll. And that just comes right from my business plan. I'm sorry. So this is for the dog walkers and the salesperson. This is where I put myself as the owner, and then I put here included or excluded, right? Based upon whether I have completed an IC exemption or not. If I've had insurance in the prior 3 to 5 years, I have to identify that. And then this is description of business operations.
Are those the insurances that we just went over?
This is if I've had other companies and paid insurance premiums to workers' comp for them. So before this, I had a feed store. So then I would put, you know, about my feed store and et cetera. Or if I had the dog walking business for a while and I was leaving Payne West and going to State Fund because I've had too many claims and now Payne West won't cover me anymore. Okay, so then this is the description, you know, dog walking. And then you can see all these questions. They're very, very specific. In the example I'm going to give you to do, you don't need to worry about any of those. Okay, then I'm going to show you how the calculations work. Then at the end of the year, so then you pay a deposit. Then you get to the end of the year, and do you think what you estimated is exactly what it was? Of course not. So at the end of the year, they're going to send you a pre-printed payroll report, and it's going to, here's their codes. These are internal codes that their actuaries generate, and it's going to describe the different kinds of folks. So it would say, you know, dog walkers and salesperson. And then all you have to do is tell what the actual gross earnings were for that period. And then they'll reconcile it. So you'll see in case, or in assignment number 4, what they want you to do is we're using the data from number 2 to do number 4. So I didn't do a whole bunch more new data. So I said use the data provided on Wilmo Company in assignment 2, along with the following, to complete a workers' comp insurance application. So you're going to do the app. using the salary data provided in assignment 2. And I tell you that all of the employees are drivers except Mr. Moran is the owner, and Marie Kramer and Lisa Murray are the sales people. So if you go back to assignment 2, I've given you how much they make a pay period, right? So just take this times the number of pay periods in the year. So that's what I'm doing to estimate the pay, okay? Biweekly, yep. So I do that to estimate the pay, then the policy's issued, but this is what their wages actually end up being at the end of that year. So that's for the payroll report. Does that make sense? So, here's what happens. So if I estimated that my dog walkers, I'm going to have 2 of them, are going to make $28,000 and $32,000. And my salesperson is going to be half-time and make $16,000. Okay, I'm going to put that on my estimate on my application, right? Then they're going to come back with a class code, and they're going to be like, oh, dog walkers are pretty, that's a pretty dangerous occupation. I'm going to rate them, and you're not going to know what the class code is. It's a book of, 20,000 class codes. But they come up and they say, you're a 3011.6, and your premiums for the dog walkers are 14.12. And your salesperson has got a class code of 1089.3. And that's a little bit higher risk than an office person because they're probably going to be in a car, right? So their premium is 7.29. I want you to figure out what you think the deposit's going to be based on this information. And those numbers they give you are percentages. So I'm estimating 2 dog walkers at $28,000 and $32,000. And I'm estimating 1 saleswoman at $16,000. And they come back and they rate it, and they give me the premiums. And they just quote you those numbers, but they're really percentages. 14.12%. Yep. So I want you to calculate what the deposit is that they're asking for. Okay, so I think I've got a total of $60,000 in projected wages for my dog walkers times 0.1412. So my premiums for them are going to be $84.72, right? And then my salesperson, 16,000 times 0.0729 is another 1166. So I send them a check for 9638, right? Just to get off the ground. Did you guys get that number? So what's going to happen at the end of the year? I'm going to get that payroll report.
Nobody cares about that 40 cents, right?
No. I get to the end of the year, and my company didn't go at all like I thought. I had to lay off the second dog walker almost immediately. So my actual was I only paid about $30,000 in total to my dog walkers, but I popped up my salesperson because I could clearly see that's where I needed to put my efforts. This is all you do on the payroll report is report the actual. Oh, sure, sorry. So the stuff up top goes on the application, the stuff on the bottom goes on the payroll report. And they're gonna come back, and what are they gonna say to me? Do they owe me money or do I owe them money? They owe me money because my actual was way less than my projected. And then guess what I have to do? I have to project again for the next year. And they're gonna credit me the amount they owe me to the next year. So you're always in that rolling situation.
Show me the equation.
Sure. Okay, so basically that's what you need to know, you guys. So the equation here, let's see, where am I? So these equaled 60,000, right? So my equation was 60,000 times 0.1412, right? Because this is the rate class they gave me.
And those would be the rate, correct?
They give you, yep, they come back and give you all this. And then what was my 16,000 times 0.0729? And those two numbers give me the amount of the deposit. Does that make sense? Okay, if you have any questions, I kind of shoved this last part on here. Yeah, in about 7 minutes. If you have any questions, just email me. I think when you pull it out, you just estimate, they give you the rate class, and then at the end, they do all the calculations to make it even. It's really actually pretty easy, other than writing a check for $9,600. Okay, see you on Wednesday, and I will get the tests ready to roll for Friday.
Are we gonna have to say the difference between what we estimated and the actual on the test?